Now, if you're a major boxing fan, you guys already know that Abdullah Mason is the truth. But if you're a casual boxing fan, or maybe you don't pay that much attention to boxing, you should know that Abdullah Mason is the future of boxing. You know, we got a lot of names that are in the mix at top rank. You got Keyshawn Davis, Abdullah Mason, and Tiger Johnson. A lot of fighters are under that top rank promotion, but I think Abdullah Mason is the future of boxing. I feel like this kid is super good at what he does. You know, he's a sniper. He's so precise at, you know, not only counter punching, but his offense as a whole is so solid and well-rounded. The only concern is that, you know, he does get hit. He's been dropped before. He's been in arguably one of the most exciting first rounds that we've ever seen in the sport of boxing. Got dropped 2 times and wins by stoppage. I feel like Abdullah Mason's the truth. You know, I think with Tank and Shakur, they're both great fighters, but I think this kid is the future of 135 for sure. You know, I'm not sure if we're going to see Abdullah Mason versus Tank or Abdullah Mason versus Shakur Stevenson, obviously, but this kid's really good at what he does. Like I said, he's a good counter puncher. He's very accurate, like I said, and I think he could give a lot of guys problems at 35. You know, I just really think, you know, him, Kermel, there are a lot of good talented fighters, but like I said, like if you're not watching boxing and you're curious about who's going to be the future, you know, who you should invest stock into right now, is definitely Abdullah Mason. The kid's just got the goods, and he's just looking better and better every time he fights. He's exciting, and at the same time, you know, his personality behind the scenes and in front of the camera is the same. You know, he doesn't switch up for the camera. He's not changing who he is, and I think that's something that's special about him. He lets his fighting do the talking. We saw him get into it with Keyshawn Davis. Keyshawn obviously was talking smack to Abdullah Mason, basically saying, like, you don't actually want to fight me, kind of trying to call Abdullah Mason's bluff, and Abdullah kind of stuttered and maybe didn't give the answer that everybody had wanted, and, you know, create some more animosity towards Keyshawn. But at the end of the day, like, if they were to fight, it's still a tremendous fight. You know, Abdullah is still fighting at 135. Keyshawn missed weight in Norfolk, Virginia, and then Abdullah Mason became that, ultimately, you know, that main event fight for that Keyshawn Davis fight. It was supposed to be Keyshawn, but he messed up on the scales, you know what I mean? Like, Keyshawn can talk all he wants about how, you know, Abdullah maybe doesn't actually want to fight him. He doesn't actually want the smoke. He wants to hear that Abdullah Mason wants to fight him, you know, from his mouth. But at the end of the day, it's like, you missed weight. You know, you thought that because you're a relatively popular fighter that you could do the same thing that Ryan did to Devin. Like, it's not do or die for, you know, you. It's not do or die for Edwin De Los Santos to fight you. That's for sure. You know, he didn't go through with the fight. He did the right thing. You know, I think he made the smart and intelligent decision by not fighting Keyshawn, because he blew weight. Like, you don't just miss weight and then get to fight another fight just because it's in your hometown. I think Keyshawn thought that he was going to get away with it because he was fighting in Virginia and the people were expecting a hometown hero, you know. But at the end of the day, like, the rules are there for a reason. You can't just say, forget about it, fuck everybody else, and you know, I'm the star and I'm going to make this fight happen, but on my terms, and I can miss weight. The rules don't apply to me. You know, obviously that's not the case. He thought that he was bigger than he was, that he had more power and more pull than he does. And he's not Ryan Garcia. You know, Devin made that decision because it was such a huge fight that he couldn't, you know, say no to it. He had to do it for the fans. You know, honestly, Edwin De Los Santos did the right thing to Keyshawn Davis by not taking that fight, because he already looked drained. And, you know, honestly, maybe De Los Santos still could have done it, because I believe, you know, the boxing gods give karma. You know, they give karma when it's due. And I think Keyshawn was due for karma, and he got it ultimately, but it could have been worse. You know, what if he missed weight and then ended up losing to De Los Santos? I think it's possible that Keyshawn was just afraid to lose against De Los Santos, so he was like, I need the biggest advantage I could get. So that's why he missed weight. You know, I don't buy that Keyshawn just simply outgrew the weight. He was busy back-to-back and active at lightweight for multiple fights. You know, his most recent fights, he looked fine making 135, and then he blows weight and misses it and weighs in close to 140. You know, like, he's fighting as a 140 pounder. Like, that's crazy. Real boxing fans know that's impossible. You know, we've seen everything in the sport of boxing. He either didn't try to make the weight early enough, you know, slacked off, you know, he became champ and started maybe eating whatever, but that's got to be the diet. It's got to be the diet, because I know he trains hard, but you got to understand that boxing is like it's a sport of inches. It's a sport of the science, and that comes to the nutrition as well. So Keyshawn really has to figure that out. But just going back to Abdullah Mason, just a tremendous fighter. Them fighting in the future, Keyshawn and Abdullah, that's a tremendous one. They definitely had some animosity, some heat there when they were on stage talking to each other at the press conference. But, you know, Abdullah's that guy for sure, and Keyshawn is as well. But, you know, Abdullah's looking more professional than Keyshawn is, and Keyshawn, you know, was the champion. So it's just like a bad look for Keyshawn. But I would really like to see Keyshawn versus Abdullah Mason at some point. It'd be a tremendous fight. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next Boxing video. Peace.